Welcome back to the Metro on WDET, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. And when people think about Detroit, two things often come to mind. It's either cars or music. And that's not for nothing. Techno, Motown, Ford trucks, and the factories that made them have changed the lives of locals and people around the globe. But what Detroiters get less attention for are the attire people wear to tell stories about themselves and the city they live in. I'm talking about fashion. Clothing is functional, yes, but it's also style. It's a signal to other people, explaining who you are, who you yearn to be, and the things that really matter to you. And I love to say even it's a personal stand of protest. And that's important because depending on what you wear, people treat you differently. They may dap you up, even pay you a little more respect. So for a long time, Detroiters have taken pride in the things they wear. Fashion here reflects a blend of ruggedness and high celebrity. Take Aretha Franklin, who wore Dittrich mink furs everywhere she went and never left her purse at home. Big-time rappers have sported Pelle Pelle jackets. Young people and construction workers can be seen wearing Carhartts and Detroit sportswear.
But Tia, these trends, they mean nothing on their own. Clothing shapes and is shaped by the people who wear it. And so during this hour, we want to understand the uniqueness not of Detroit's cars and music, but of its clothing. And we want to ask you, what is Detroit style? What kind of shoes and shirts and coats do you associate with Detroit and Detroiters? Call in and let us know. The number is 313-577-1019. We want to start this conversation by talking with a Detroiter who thinks a lot about fashion trends here in this city. Con Santori Davison is a freelance journalist and contributing writer for the Metro Times. Con, welcome back to the Metro.
Hey.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So you recently took to TikTok to explain how Detroit fashion has changed. I want to play a clip of that right now.
Folks don't wear coats no more. Like when I drop my daughter off at school, nobody has on a coat, none of the kids. When I'm covering concerts and album release parties and after parties, these young folks don't wear a coat now. Okay, one thing is that it's cold as a mug outside, but the other part is that, the coat used to be the main part of your fashion statement. That was the highlight of your fit, was your coat.
Coats really were central to Detroit style back in the day, Con. So what were the big coat brands? What did that style look like? Why did it matter?
Oh, it was fabulous. It was a wonderful time to be alive because you can say sheepskins, leather shearling coats for like more formal wear. And then when you get into maybe a little more sporty or less formal, Pelle Pelle leather jackets, Alwasan leather jackets. And the beauty of this is, you just pointed out Aretha and Dittrich, is that the clothes we wore either had Detroit roots or the places we bought them from were quintessential to Detroit. You know, Mark Buchanan, Pelle Pelle is Detroit. Alwasan is Detroit. And so, these were... We identified by the brands. They were homegrown brands. And again, your coat, like you could have an off day. Hey, you didn't get a chance to get to the iron, didn't get a chance to get to the cleaners. But if you had a fire coat on and a nice pair of shoes, you saved your whole outfit. You was going to have a good night that night.
That was it. That was all that you needed. And we were a lot warmer back then, too. Why do you think things changed over time? Why do people no longer wear coats to show off their style in Detroit in that same way?
I think a part of it is just convenience. Just to be fair, we have a culture now when it comes to stuff like Uber. You see a lot of you go to a hip hop concert, kids are jumping out of Ubers with no coats running into the venue, instead of just like parking, a quarter mile away and walking. The same thing with school events. So car culture played, and rideshare played a role in that. And then the other half of it was just that, formal fashion in Detroit and overall has kind of been on the decline and streetwears took over. And so, remember, a lot of us, we were partying during the no jeans, no gym shoes days. So we had on slacks or Rockports or gator shoes if we was really trying to do it big. You know what I mean? So that era is gone, and so now it's ripped jeans, it's more sneakers, t-shirts, sweatshirts. So it's just kind of the way fashion went.
Yeah, again, we're colder. Lots of rips and tears in our clothes. Now, what are the Detroit brands that people are wearing most these days that you're observing?
313 is a great brand. They do a lot of sportswear, t-shirts, a lot of great hats. Regaro does make a lot of awesome jackets. Of course, Detroit versus everybody, and you have the Wealthy brand. Anybody ever see anybody with a t-shirt on with a box logo with Wealthy in it? And so, and the great thing about it now is that if you go to any kind of concert or venue, you'll probably see the kids, and I say kids meaning folks under 30, with just as many Detroit brands on as other brands. Like they may have on a pair of Nike Air Jordan shoes, but they got on a 313 shirt. They got on a Detroit versus everybody t-shirt. You know what I mean? So there is like a different kind of pride that the younger generation has with how they've embraced these homegrown brands from Detroit. And so I think that's really a beautiful thing. And also the newer sport jackets. Like, man, I've never seen this many different kinds of Pistons and remixed Tigers jackets. Like, it's not what it was, but again, things change and everything gets embraced in its own time.
You mentioned that some of this you feel is birthed from convenience. Kids are getting into the Uber and getting dropped off right outside the venue, not having to walk multiple blocks, and so there's no need for that coat anymore. Where else do you think the shift came from when we see this pivot from Pelle Pelle coats to some of the athletic jackets you're talking about and so on?
I think the general, from me having 4 kids, I can attest that kids just believe a coat is bulky. They'd even rather just sacrifice being cold for those 2 to 3 minutes or less for the sake of not having to walk around with a bulky coat. And I get it. That's actually always been the case, because you got to remember, in those days, if your coat was too expensive, Coat Check wouldn't check it. You got on a mink from Elmar or Dittrich and be like, no, we don't accept that coat. And you stuck with it the whole night, but it was okay because your freshness was the most important anyway. So if you had to be hot, walk around with that coat, you were probably, you definitely one of the best dressed folks in there. So you were willing to just bear with it.
You're listening to The Metro on WDET, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. We're speaking with freelance journalist Tori Davison about what Detroit fashion is and how it's changed over the last 40 years. And we definitely want to hear from you. What defines Detroit style? The number is 313-577-1019. We're going to bring someone in from the phone line. Sal on the east side. Sal, what's your number one piece of Detroit fashion?
Hey, what up, though?
What up, though?
What up, though? Yeah, well, my number one piece, that you can never go wrong with is a fresh white pair of Air Force Ones. That's universal, west side and east side. I look at Detroit, how we dress in our style is a representation of us. You know what I'm saying? It also depends. I think it's like art in a way. You know what I mean? It's self-expression. You know what I mean? I feel like depending on how you feel that day, you may dress, you dress accordingly. And then also you got to throw in the age gap, the generation gaps. Because, when I was coming up, we ain't never, wear no sagging jeans showing our butt. How you going to have on skinny jeans, but yet you're dragging, they're sagging and you're showing your underwear? That was unheard of, you feel me? Unheard of where I come from, Back in my day, we had, top 10s, some shell-toe Adidas, fat shoelaces, jingle boots, stuff like that, And again, east side dress different from the west side, you know what I mean?
Which is
but
true.
I think it's all an expression of art and who you are. Now, these young kids nowadays, they taking it to a different level. You feel me? So, it's just different, and that's just what I believe it is. It's an expression of one's individuality. In Detroit, we've always been stylish. I was in at a barbershop one day, and I looked on it, and it had old Mayor Coleman Young, and he was getting his shoes shined. And he had the stylish Dobb hat on and some Stacey Adams. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's Detroit. You know what I mean?
Yes, Saul. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Saul, for your call this morning. I'm thinking about just everything that you're talking about. And number one, Robin and I talk about the skinny jeans often. And it's just like, it's a lot of ripped jeans, skinny jeans hanging around here.
And then as Saul was noting, like, how do you still show your behind?
Yeah, how are your pants still sagging?
With your skinny jeans? This is a conundrum.
It is. Con, bringing you back into the conversation and thinking about what Saul had to say there. Can you talk a little bit about your style growing up? Like, what were some of your go-to pieces when you were in school?
Oh, man. 90s were baggy. You know what I mean? That 90s, you bought, if the jeans weren't baggy, you just bought an extra size, and it was Timberlands, it was Adidas, it was Jordans, it was Feelers, but really the most identifying mark were the baggy clothes, were the polo shirts. And I always tell people, the bagginess, it wasn't just fashion. That bagginess, it made you bigger. It brought like an extra presence to you. You felt like you were like walking on top of the world with your Timberlands and your baggy clothes and your Pelle Pelle jacket. You had this extra presence about yourself, man. But things come and go. So yeah, baggy jeans kind of transitioned into not so baggy, the skinny jeans, and now we're kind of in all over the place. The skinny jeans is not the predominant thing anymore. You kind of see a mixture of things when you're outside.
And Con, just hearing your rant about the kids and the coats, I saw that on social media, and I was thinking to myself as you were speaking with Robin earlier, I have so many different coats. I am one of those. I think I'm like that holdover from the last generation, where you can kind of tell based on the amount of coats I have, because coats are like you said, you can have on anything underneath, but if your coat and your shoes look good, you're okay.
That's
you
right.
know?
Yeah, and if you go to, I know one of the main stores we bought coats from was Donna Sachs. And Donna Sachs still exists, but you can go and the kind of coats that we wore aren't there. And they aren't there because the kids aren't, they aren't buying them. The young adults aren't buying them this generation. There are more sporty jackets, more Pistons, Tigers, and Lions coats like that. More jackets with more, say, cartoon or pop culture things on them. So, I mean, things change.
Things do change. Now, you cover hip hop. There are a lot of prominent Detroiters in hip hop right now. We see Big Sean. I mean, Cash Dow right now has completely, on social media at least, has completely kind of changed over the way women are wearing their hair right now. We see curtain bangs and big curls are coming in because Cash Dow has completely revolutionized that right now. We see Danny Brown and his skater aesthetic, and T Grizzly and Sada Baby. So how are our hip hop stars shaping fashion in Detroit and beyond?
Well, main thing I'm going to go back to specifically, since you brought up our hip hop all stars in the city, is that they've all embraced local brands. Every single one. I have not seen a Detroit hip hop artist just that does not wear a local brand, and so that's important. And the way they wear them is pretty much consistent with how the young adults are wearing clothes. Some baggy, a lot of fitted, some overly tight or skinny jeans. You see some of as far as the gym shoes, a lot of Jordans, but also a lot of high end, because I remind people, one of the biggest complaint or you hear from parents is that these young adults, these kids wear such expensive clothes. And that's because in fashion, kind of sort of now, the Ralph Lauren's and Lacoste's, those brands that were kind of pricey but not too pricey, have kind of been squeezed out a little bit. People are generally opting to pay more money. Going out is competitive, and you're willing to pay that money to stand out, to be the freshest in the room, the freshest shoes in the party, the best coat, the best dress. people are willing to pay a premium for that a little bit now more than they were in yesteryear.
And it's interesting because I do want to touch on the export of men fashion, or just men's fashion in the city of Detroit in general. It's always been one of the ones that has been front and center. We've known about the gator shoes, or even Henry the Hatter, or even city slickers. So I'm thinking about just men's fashion in the city of Detroit and the importance that it's held over the years and generations, and where you see it now. Men's fashion, the dapperness of it.
Well, the dapperness of it, like I said, it has fallen second to streetwear. The one thing I hate about it is that, like when Biggie said, "Pink Gators by my Detroit players." We were known, and when I interview, say, out of state artists or people that don't live here in the entertainment business, I always ask them what is their best Detroit memory. And there was a young lady, I can't think of her name right now, but she's an actress from BMF at Snowfall, and she said, I was in a play at Fox Theater in like '89, and all the men had on beaver coats. And that was just the most Detroit thing ever for '89.
I'm sorry.
And the fact that she had remembered that, 3 decades later, because she had never seen nothing like it.
Yeah.
You only go to the Fox Theater and see multiple men with beaver coats. That is a Detroit thing. That doesn't happen anywhere else. And so that kind of thing has kind of been lost, as to where, even though the younger generation now have their own fashion brands and they wear them, the look is still pretty consistent kind of to what everybody else is doing. So, right now we don't have that Dobbs hat, gator shoes look that defined us in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, the one thing I did notice was Cash Doll and her hair, which is popping off on social right now. But other than that, I was thinking, what fashion export is really taking hold, or has taken hold outside of the city of Detroit? And like you're saying, just like most things in the city, we keep it here, we keep it close to our chest, and we don't really let others have it.
Yeah. And we have to understand that because of the internet, everybody's influenced by everything, and it happens with music, it happens in entertainment, everybody's influenced by the world. So a lot of artistic and fashion trends that used to be unique to cities, everything's kind of shared. Yeah. Everybody's kind of being inspired by everybody else, because we can see what the entire country and entire world is doing and wearing.
Yeah. Con Centauri Davison is a freelance journalist and contributing writer. Con, as always, thank you for joining us on the Metro. We look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Coming up, we'll continue discussing Detroit's latest fashion trends, and we want to hear from you. What is Detroit style? What kinds of shoes and shirts and coats remind you of this city? The number is 313-577-1019. Stay with us. This is the Metro. Welcome back to the Metro on WDET, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. Like all things cultural, Detroit's fashion styles don't have one origin story. A lot has influenced Detroit's fashion. One of those things is the fur trade. Before Detroit was even founded, this region became a hub for trading pelts like mink, beaver, and fox. That history never fully left us, as fur coats remained a fixture of Detroit fashion and could be seen on Aretha Franklin, of course, former Mayor Coleman A. Young, and radio personality Martha Jean the Queen Steinberg. If you know Martha Jean the Queen, you know radio.
Snaps, Tia, snaps.
Yes.
But everything changes, doesn't it? including fashion. The 1990s bore witness to the rise of baggy, oversized clothing and bucket hats, which was made popular by Detroit singer Aaliyah, rest in power, and TLC, in addition to their gold hoop earrings and acrylic nails. Detroit and Detroiters helped influence the world of fashion, just as they were influenced by them. This hour, we're talking about how Detroit's fashion styles have changed over the years, and we want to hear from you. What is Detroit style? What kinds of shoes and shirts and coats do you look at and go, yeah, that's Detroit? To continue the conversation, we have Monica Sinclair with us now. She's an assistant professor of teaching, fashion design, and merchandising at Wayne State University. Professor Sinclair, welcome to the Metro.
Hi there. Thanks for having me on.
So Detroit is considered an underdog in the fashion world. Why do you think that is?
It's funny that you say that. I think more and more recognition is coming to paying attention to Detroit. More people are aware of designers, especially emerging designers from the city than ever before, thanks to technology, social media, which people can gain access to this information.
So you would say that was kind of a turning point, was social media for Detroit in terms of putting Detroit on the map as a fashion place, as a fashion city?
Well, that's that's. I don't think that's entirely true. Detroit has fashion really kind of baked into its history, baked into its roots, going all the way back to the early 1900s. And then fast forward to today, where not that long ago, Bottega Veneta hosted their fashion show here in our city, where they traditionally present in Milan during during Fashion Week. So it was great to have them take their inspiration for their collection. Their inspiration was based on Detroit, and then go ahead and produce their show, present it here, invite global editors, stylists, buyers to attend the show, which was in Corktown in an old firehouse.
Of course.
Yeah.
How perfect.
So, Detroit, I think, initially got its attention from key influencers, key members, decision makers, gatekeepers within the fashion industry, from music, artists and their style, definitely caught the attention of these gatekeepers, such as editors from Vogue, editors from WWD, from Nylon Interview, and throughout time. But yeah, I would say today it's a very different story than how it was in the past. And I think traditionally people have always thought of Detroit as a workwear, city where workwear was born and bred, and Carhartt was born.
I see you wearing your Carhartt. Yes.
Yeah,
representing.
That's another thing. Us Detroiters are very proud. Being here, being from here, as well as brands that represent Detroit. So Carhartt being one of them.
I want to play a clip of Sabrina Nelson, a Detroit artist. She was speaking with us last week about Detroit fashion and style.
We had Stacey Adams, we had Jingle Boots, we had Max Julian jackets, because we were sharp. I mean, we had to look good because we were from Detroit. And when you step on a college campus, the Detroit students, because they don't have any creases in their sneakers. And they don't even wear sneakers. They wear gym shoes.
Again, that was Sabrina Nelson preaching on 313 Day. What do you make of her statement and the importance of Jingle Boots and Max Julian jackets in Detroit in the 1980s?
Yeah, it's that in the 80s, that's where, we really saw the influence of hip hop and also techno was about to be born then as well. So, back then we were looking to what these artists were wearing, and celebrities, and that's what they wore. So the importance of sneakers, particularly the sneakers, was of utmost importance. They made or broke your outfit at the time, during certain periods. So in my opinion, I'm a big sneakerhead. I worked for Adidas for
a long time.
Yeah.
That had to have been like a dream come true. I mean,
oh yeah. I've loved sneakers since I was a little girl. So I would, come home with a fresh pair and just wear them with my pajamas before I wore them outside to bed at night. And obsessed.
Professor Sinclair, when you think about Detroit fashion, what comes to mind for you? I mean, you've kind of discussed some of the things that have really been foundational to Detroit fashion. What does it look like to you today?
Today, it's you still have those roots, where you see a lot of workwear influence, Carhartt, for example, and other brands on the scene as well. But, there's a huge, I would say, importance on sustainability and, especially the city being so resilient and building itself back up again. And, we see this directly mirrored in fashion, particularly here in Detroit, right? So the brands that are, that are based out of here, that are building up right now, a lot of them are focused on creating zero waste, reducing carbon emission, producing here locally, also not using so much water in their dyeing process, particularly with denim. They understand the importance of utilizing resources, building up a fresh new brand, just like the city has rebuilt itself as well from its existing resources, right?
You're listening to The Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. We're speaking with Monica Sinclair, assistant professor at Wayne State University, about what Detroit fashion is and how it's changed over the last 40 years or so. And we also want to hear from you. What defines Detroit style? The number is 313-577-1019. We're going to jump to the phone lines. Let's go to Jackie in Detroit. Jackie, what says Detroit fashion like nothing else?
Well, currently, I think it is a hodgepodge of not cool. I'm so sorry. It's just that sometimes I think about some of the other individuals that called and talked about the way that fashion was. When we walked out the door, we wanted to look a certain way. We wanted to look cool. As historical methods, the shoes, Stacey Adams, and then we had Donna Saxon and Florissant and City Slickers, and then we were wearing Sassoon jeans and Gloria Vanderbilt, and the guys were wearing the rolling shirts and the knickknacks. And there was a place called the Overroom upstairs at Macy's where it was just beautiful clothing. But when we went out and we hung out at the clubs at night, the ladies were all dressed, and the guys had on their coats and their hats, and it's just a different genre, and I get it. I have a nephew that wears the skinny pants like from the 60s and the 70s, but he wears a suit jacket, and his pants are over his ankles, but he wears his shoes and maybe a sweater, but it's still done with style and class, and I think that sometimes that I miss that with our city and the originality, because people knew where you came from when you went out of town, because we had this standard of dressing where people knew that you weren't from that particular city, if that makes sense. Yeah. So we kind of set the bar for fashion, and I do not like seeing the jeans down and with your underwear and the stretch pants mania just throws me off, because everyone wears stretch pants and they're kind of should be a stretch pants police, so to speak. I'm sorry.
Jackie, thank you so much for that. Stretch pants from police. But thank you so much for that, Jackie, because a lot of folks say the same thing, similar situations. They miss the old days, quote unquote. And when people dressed up to go out and actually kind of cared about their appearance, or quote unquote cared about their appearance. So Jackie from Detroit, thank you so much for calling. We're going to bring Monica back into the conversation because we're talking about young people. And that's the perfect transition to talk about young people today in fashion and how, trends are changing and how they are changing in terms of consuming it. When we spoke a little bit earlier, you talked about Gen Z being one of the largest buying population right now, generation right now.
Correct.
So can you talk a little bit about the trends you're seeing with young people in terms of their shopping habits and where they're shopping and where they're choosing to get their clothing?
Oh, this is my favorite topic. So yeah, Gen Z is the generation that is about to have the highest buying power. As this generation is graduating and they're about to use their first paycheck from their big job that they land, they're going to turn to a brand that they've been following, that they've grown with, something that's more organic and that they know that they can trust. And to this generation, in particular, they are looking at transparency, with brands. Are they socially responsible? Are they practicing fair labor? There's issues with labor practices even within luxury houses. I know there's a lot of issues that have come into light with factory production in Milan for some of these luxury brands. So, this generation cares about it. They care where they're putting their dollars. They care that they're not fueling fast fashion. And in terms of trends, yeah, it's just there's this theory that says trends tend to cycle every 20 years or so. It's the theory of historic continuity, and it's not like 20 years on the dot, but trends seem to resurface, and then they get anchored in our moment of time as the point of view of fashion right now. So, I think back to, when I was in high school and obsessed with Aaliyah and, trying to copy some of the outfits. And I see this right now in the classrooms, with how my students are dressing.
So you're seeing 90s rolling back. So you're seeing like what era are you seeing come back? Are you seeing like the Aaliyah 90s era come back? Are you seeing the early 2000s?
I'm seeing a bit of both, but also, the grunge too. So both sides, hip hop as well as, grunge rock. So, a lot of like flannel, ripped jeans, but, the oversized is really
the Jenko jeans.
Oh,
yeah.
Robin,
those are so bad. Yeah. Of course, I was a raver. I definitely owned Jenkos.
Oh,
yes. Yeah, like 69-inch ones.
Oh, nice.
And I'm about to say, and Robin's not that. Robin, the puddles were afraid to see Robin coming. How about that? The puddles were afraid.
Scoop them up with the Jenkos.
I had 6 inches like water stains after like partying at a warehouse all night. My mom, it was a telltale sign. My mom knew exactly where I had been and I was in trouble.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's interesting though because the rave style influences from techno music. It definitely dips into 100% dips into fashion, and I see a lot of this with luxury brands. They're tapping into this as well. The oversized pants with cargo pockets and nylon jackets with color, quite colorful nylon jackets, and that was on trend back then. Yeah. But again, it cycles back to today, right? So yeah.
And I'm thinking as well as we're chatting a little bit about, trends coming back around. It's a cycle. We see things coming. I saw a young woman not too long ago with gaucho pants on. And I thought to myself, gauchos are coming back already. No. So not yet. No, I'm not old enough yet, but they're coming back around. However, I've also seen so many other trends that you wouldn't expect to see coming back around in terms of this 20-year cycle. So do you contribute that to social media of the trends kind of blending together now? And we're seeing, of course, like you said, some of the ones that we expect to come back around, but we're also seeing just ones that are never gone away.
True, yeah. Trends can be quite long-lived, or vice versa, very short-lived, which we call a fad. But in terms of, following trends, it's hard to pinpoint, these days. And fashion brands have such a hard job to figure this out before they go into design work and production of their product, to be able to forecast what will be on trend 6 months out to when the product will hit retail. So that's why they lean on sources like WGSN, which is an excellent trend forecasting company that many brands use worldwide. I have my students look at it as well. But there's another way of, sourcing trends, which is kind of like brailing the culture and diving deep into various cultures through the access we have today, right? Yeah. Through social media, through travel. So that way, this allows trends to spread more quickly. And I'm noticing that the life cycle of a trend is much more short-lived these days than it was in the past. And
it feels like almost a year.
You have these micro trends that, the coastal grandma, the gorpcore, that come and go, and you really don't know what's going to stick, and what can really lead to, what really influences them sticking or not. It depends a lot on environmental factors, such as like what's happening in the world, what are these macro environmental factors that are affecting consumers as well as the brands.
And Monica, before we let you go, just really quickly, 30 seconds or less or so, possibly not able to do it in 30 seconds or less, but I'm thinking just about the future, the young people. I've been really excited to see what's coming out of the College of Creative Studies with their fashion department and fashion industry there with Chad Chocolat.
Aki Chocolat.
Thank you.
Dear Aki, friend of mine.
Yes. Yeah. And Aki has been bringing all these major brands here to the city of Detroit, expanding Detroit's fashion footprint, and building this really great fashion community from all levels, whether it's the kids or even high-end fashion brands. So can you talk about the future of Detroit's fashion and where you see it going within the next decade or so?
Oh, my gosh. I give a lot of credit to Aki. He's brought in so many amazing industry leaders, and there is, quite a large, heavy importance on what is happening today in Detroit in terms of the fashion community. President of Hermes was here, and learning more about what we're doing. Not that long ago, when they were doing a store visit to their store in Somerset, and Aki has brought in, the list goes on.
Yeah, I know.
It's just, it's wild. But people are aware of okay, what is the secret little hidden gem of talent that is existing right here? It's a bunch of really strong, gritty, hardworking creatives that are living and breathing this as they're learning and doing and making. And these are the next, I'm referring to the students over at CCS, over at Wayne State here. And this is the next generation. We will be wearing their designs. These are the next, this is what, I get the opportunity to be with these future fashion leaders. And that's what's incredible to me. Yeah.
I've gone to a few of the youth fashion shows, and the college students, and I'm impressed as well. And I'm really, I feel the same thing that you're saying. We're going to be wearing Detroit designers in a major way within the next 10 15 years. So I'm super excited to see that. Monica Sinclair is an assistant professor of teaching fashion design and merchandising at Wayne State University. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Coming up, we'll talk about the next generation of fashion designers with someone who's helping to create the trends in the first place. Stay with us on the Metro. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Metro on WDET, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. And throughout the hour, we've been talking about Detroit fashion, what it is, how it's changed, and how it's going to change over the next few decades. And we want to hear from you. What is Detroit style, and what kind of shoes and shirts and coats remind you of this city? Number is 313-577-1019.
And we're continuing this conversation now with someone who's had a hand in actively changing fashion styles here locally. Brooklyn Jackson is the owner of Form Fit, an athleisure brand, and she's also a senior at Wayne State University's Business School. Brooklyn, welcome to the Metro.
Hello, how are you?
Hi. So you got started working as a fashion entrepreneur when you were 16. Tell us, what inspired you to start your brand, Kobe Collections?
So Kobe Collections is actually like a family-owned business with my mom. She owns a hair salon, and she actually does my hair. So this was just kind of like the next step for like, it made sense at the time for us to start my entrepreneurship journey in-house. So I started selling hair extensions, and yeah, just kind of, that just started my whole little wave of, being an entrepreneur.
Okay, at 16, it made sense. I mean, that's ambitious. I don't think a lot of 16-year-olds are like, okay, it makes sense for me to start working now and realizing this bigger dream.
Yeah. So I think I was always on social media. So like the way that I came up and kind of like being in the hair industry and things like that, that kind of was just natural for me. Not necessarily it made sense to like become an entrepreneur that young, but it made sense because of the life that I lived. Like as far as like doing hair shows and like, being on the internet, I've always been an internet girl. So like it just, that made sense. Like, that was eventually the next step when, doing stuff like that all your life.
You had your eye in this direction for a long time. What did you learn about fashion by doing that kind of work in high school?
So really, realistically, while I was in high school, fashion wasn't what I was doing at that time. I was doing hair extensions and fully only hair extensions and like lip gloss. I even had a phase with lip gloss and things like that. Fashion didn't come into play until I graduated high school. So I graduated during the pandemic in 2020. And it didn't even really start there. Kobe Collections just gave me the gateway to be able to invest in something that I kind of just wanted to try, and that was fashion, which is where the brand Form Fit Clothing was created. And it just ended up popping. So like technically I didn't have any experience in fashion. I just kind of figured, it was just something I wanted to try. I know that my place in this world is to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So at this point, I'm kind of I was just testing the waters, and that was something that I liked. Like, just looking at brands in high school. I feel like my high school experience inspired the brand that I chose to create, but not necessarily me having full knowledge on it in high school.
And your brand, Form Fit, it's centered on athleisure, and you have just mentioned the pandemic. I'm wondering if that played a role in centering clothing on athleisure, which is more comfy but stylish wear.
Kind of, yeah. Like, I mean, for sure, like that time in my life, if I wasn't getting dressed up for school, I was in athleisure. And then I like really, really always, like I'll tell people all the time, like my mom and dad invested in my first bulk of hair, and I spent all the money on like Pretty Little Things and like, you know, Mistress Rocks, those brands. And I literally used to just buy 2-piece sets from them all the time. So that kind of was like, you know, I like athleisure wear and I like 2-piece sets. Why don't we just try something? So that kind of is where that came from. Yeah.
You're listening to The Metro. I'm Robin Vincent.
And I'm Tia Graham. We're speaking with Brooklyn Jackson, a Detroit fashion designer who has her own brand, Form Fit, and who was a senior at Wayne State's business school. And we're talking about fashion trends here in the city of Detroit. And, you know, Brooklyn, just listening to everything you're saying, thinking about, you know, everything you've been able to accomplish as a senior at Wayne State University. And I'm thinking about the support you've received from your parents and your family and the importance of having that foundation there. Can you talk about the importance of that foundation and having your parents to look to know that these certain things and avenues and lanes are open and possible?
Yeah, I feel like I'm one of the few lucky ones to just be like blessed with a village, because I feel like all of the knowledge that I started with, I was able to like start with a great foundation. Like my parents, like I'm just like a better version of them. I was able to like, you know, go to college and get like an education, like, you know, go to college, get an education and be able to further what they have already taught me. But I was able to start somewhere, you know, and a lot of people can't say that because they don't have the right guidance in their life. So I think my parents played a huge role in my success when it comes to just like always keeping my eye on the ball and staying sharp. And a lot of the things that I know in business now are just simply off of the mistakes that they made, but now I don't have to make them because on top of my education, I just had people that already been through it before. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as I heard the story where your parents are in there, shout out to your parents who are in the studio with us right now. But I just thought about this, you know, similarities there in terms of my growth as well. Just having a village of people who are there, no matter what you're doing, they're going to help you out. And if you stumble, they're there to pick you up.
Exactly.
So just having that is so important and instrumental, especially being a Black woman in this industry.
For sure.
So, you know, just being a young Black woman in Detroit's fashion scene, can you talk to us a little bit about the things that you've been able to experience just trying to sell your clothing and to sell your business to others? Social media is a huge thing, but what else are you doing to get the word out?
So recently I started a brand called Form Fit Forum. And I feel like Form Fit has like really in a way like simply humbled me to be like a leader and a pillar within the community because of the like people that it has brought around me. I started like it was able to create like models and things like that, and these people that relied on me for, you know, not only happiness but just a place to feel free. So I think as I've been doing it, I've been able to not only sell clothes, but be a blessing to others and like give back when it comes to just my leadership, my mentorship, you know, my energy and just being around. You know, I've been able to create an ecosystem of people that do support me now. And it's not even just about clothes. So wherever I decide to move or do in this world, I could decide to be a dentist tomorrow. I have people that are behind me rooting for me because I've poured into them as much as they poured into me. So I think that's what's helped me. And those are the things that I've done, and you don't think that that's important as a business owner to have those supporters. But it's like if you have 1 million people but nobody is coming back to support you, it's kind of like, what are you doing it for? But if you have those 4 riders and they tell 2 people and they tell 2 people and they tell 2 people, and then you're giving all of these different people this great energy and they're getting this great experience, it's no way you can't win. So I think my village and the people that have grown to love me as a business owner and as a person, for sure is what has helped me.
And we're getting down to the end here, but I'm thinking about just, of course, your business. You've held fashion shows. You're starting to create a mini community surrounding you and the industry itself. Like you said, jobs are being created. You're seeing how it's actively moving around you, and as it's growing and following you right now. So could you just talk a little bit about how you expect to, or how you see yourself, or where you see yourself within the next 10 years or so? I'm thinking, and I'm listening to you speak, and I'm thinking of a Melissa Butler from the Lip Bar, and I'm just kind of getting those vibes. So I want to know where you see yourself.
I always say the sky's the limit. I don't necessarily have any like super end goal. I just want to continue to do what I'm doing and like do it to the best of my capacity, and continue to give out the same energy that I've been giving out to the people that surround me, and wherever that may take me, I'm cool with it. So
yeah. And just really quickly, we do want to bring in, we do have our assistant here, Lauren, who's going to bring in. Lauren, I just want to talk to you just briefly, 30 seconds or less, about your experience with fashion. You are one of the most fashionable young people I know. So talk about it.
I really think Detroit's fashion is all about the swag, from the buffs to the shoes to the jackets. The ladies in church, these fur coats, they're going to wear them. It's all about the confidence you get from wearing a brand that is from the city you grew up in.
Yes. And Brooklyn is hearing Lauren talk a little bit about that. And speaking about your future, you have an Entrepreneur Expo happening March 30th at the Garden Theater. Give us 30 seconds or less what that is.
The Entrepreneur Expo is a business resource event that is taking the small businesses within the city of Detroit and putting them all in the same room to bridge the gap between creatives and entrepreneurs. So there'll be free business resource table there that the small businesses can go and take a look at, and then there'll also be workshops. It's just a lot of good energy going on, and I think anybody that is looking to get in the business scene in the city of Detroit should be there March 30th.
Thank you. Brooklyn Jackson is the owner of Form Fit and a senior at Wayne State University's Business School. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Shout out to Lauren Myers, assistant producer on the Metro. She worked on this episode. Great work, Lauren. This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation.